This is not a military war, then, but it may be more important than one. The United States and China are locked in a hidden economic war, and most people don't even realize it's happening. Because there are no missiles, no tanks, no soldiers on the battlefield. Instead, the weapons are invisible. Trade technology, currency, supply chains, and the consequences could reshape the global economy. This is what nobody is talking about, because while headlines focus on politics, the real battle is happening beneath the surface. And by the end of this video, you'll understand how this economic war started, how it's being fought, and why it could determine the future of global power. But here's the real question. Why are the US and China competing so aggressively? This is where everything begins. For decades, the global economy followed a simple model. The United States consumed, China produced. America imported cheap goods, China exported at scale. This relationship powered globalization, but it also created dependence. The US became dependent on Chinese manufacturing. China became dependent on US demand. At first, this looked like cooperation, but over time, it turned into competition. Because economic power is geopolitical power. This is where it gets dangerous. China began to rise rapidly. Its economy expanded. Its industries grew stronger. Its global influence increased. And the US started to see a threat. Not just economic, but strategic. This is where the hidden war begins. The first major weapon? Trade war. The US imposed tariffs on Chinese goods. China responded with its own tariffs. This was not just about trade balances. It was about slowing China's rise. Because tariffs increase costs, reduce competitiveness, and shift supply chains. But this was only the beginning. The real battle moved to something more critical: technology. Because in the modern world, technology equals power. And one of the most important battlefields is semiconductors. Chips power everything. Phones, AI systems, military equipment, financial systems. This is where everything starts to escalate. The US restricted China's access to advanced semiconductor technology. Export controls, sanctions, restrictions on chip-making equipment. The goal? Slow down China's technological advancement. Because whoever leads in AI and chips leads the future economy. This is not just competition. This is strategic containment. Now China responds, investing billions to build its own semiconductor industry, trying to reduce dependence on foreign technology. This is where the war becomes deeper, because both sides are trying to control the future. Now let's talk about another battlefield: supply chains. For years, global supply chains were optimized for efficiency. Production concentrated in China. Goods shipped worldwide. But the US began to shift strategy. Companies were encouraged to move production out of China to countries like Vietnam, India, Mexico. This is called decoupling, reducing reliance on China. But decoupling is not easy. Supply chains are complex. They involve factories, ports, logistics networks, labor systems, and shifting them takes time and money. This is why the system is under stress. Now let's move to another weapon: currency. The US dollar dominates global trade. Most international transactions are conducted in dollars. This gives the US enormous power because it controls financial access. Sanctions can restrict countries from using the global financial system. China understands this and is working to reduce dollar dependence, promoting the use of the yuan, building alternative payment systems, expanding trade agreements. This is where the financial battle unfolds, because controlling currency means controlling global trade flows. Now, here's where everything connects: trade war, technology war, supply chain shifts, currency competition, all happening at the same time. This is not one conflict. It's a multi-layered economic war. And it's reshaping the global system. Now imagine this, a world divided into two economic blocs. One led by the US, one influenced by China. Different supply chains, different technologies, different financial systems. This is called economic fragmentation, and it changes everything. Because globalization relied on integration, now the system is moving towards separation. This is where it gets dangerous, because fragmentation reduces efficiency. Costs increase, trade slows, growth weakens, and global instability rises. Now layer this with another reality. The world already has massive debt. Economic shocks become harder to manage. Now ask yourself this: what happens if this economic war intensifies? More tariffs, more restrictions, more fragmentation. This could lead to slower global growth, higher inflation, supply shortages, market volatility. This is how an economic war can affect everyday life. Prices rise, jobs shift, markets react, and most people never see the cause because the war is hidden. This is what makes it powerful. Now here's the twist. This war also creates opportunities. Countries that position themselves strategically can benefit. Companies that adapt can gain advantage. Investors who understand the system can stay ahead. Because in every shift, there are winners and losers. If you want to understand how supply chains connect to choke points, watch my video on global choke points next. If you want to understand how energy ties into this system, watch why oil prices could break the global economy. Because energy, technology, trade are all connected. Subscribe to Atlas Economics, because those who understand the system will always stay ahead.